Now this is the beginning of the sword forging process. So what I have is about 13 layers of steel, and I heat them up to about 2000 degrees Fahrenheit and then forge weld them together by hitting them with about a 6-pound sledgehammer. This actually fuses the layers of steel together and they become one block of steel. The next thing that I'll do with that billet is I'll twist it, and I'll take a sister billet that's the same length and dimensions, and I'll twist that in the opposite direction. Those two billets will form the core of the sword blade, and then I'll take a very long edge billet that has a high layer count, and I'll wrap that right around the tip and forge weld it all together. This is me with a sword that I'm forging. It's been pattern molded. The billets have been forge welded together and consolidated. And now I'm forging the bevels and the profile into the blade. You'll see that I'm working on a square-faced anvil. It allows you to forge bevels without striking the face of the anvil with your hammer, because you can forge off either edge. This is where I set the final geometry of the blade. While I'm grinding, what I have to think about is where the weight is distributed in the blade. So I'm looking at the distal taper in the blade, how thin it is towards the tip, where the weight is held in the blade, and you really have to concentrate on the outer third of the blade to create a nice weight in the hand with a sword. This is the process that I do after I've forged the blade, heat treated it, and ground it. So I'm doing the final polish on that blade. This process takes me about 36 hours from start to finish. Once I've heat treated the sword, I've polished it, the forging is all done, the welds have all taken in the pattern molding, so there are no inclusions in the blade. Now I've spent several months creating the hilt and scabbard for the sword. The crossguard over the shoulders of the blade, and then a spacer, and then I'm placing the grip on over the tang, and the grip is carved out of bog oak, which is 3,000-year-old oak. I put on another spacer, place the upper guard on, and then I will take the tang and cut it off, what's left of it sticking out above the upper guard, and I'll peen that over, and that will rivet the entire assembly onto the blade. And then the final thing that you put on is the pommel. In my work I make very elaborate hilt and scabbard. So in this piece I've carved a bunch of dragon motifs from the Viking Age into the scabbard and into the fittings of the sword. And in this footage you can actually see the pattern. I've etched the pattern to bring it out. There are two different types of steel that are forge welded together, and one has a bit of nickel so it actually resists an etching. So when you etch it, you can see the pattern that you've created by twisting the steel and layering it and forge welding it together. You can see the twists. Where the twists are, there are little star patterns. And you can also see how the forging has affected the steel, so you can see that it kind of flows like water along the edges of the blade. And that's what a pattern molded sword blade looks like.